Hello and welcome to another edition of the Scions of the Southland Recap Show. As always, my name is Akshay Shwaran, and joining me is a man who has done a lot of research on cross-country travel recently, Mr. Jake Grant. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing just fine. Thanks for asking. I did do some cross country travel yesterday, so I am sequestered in my bedroom in Chicago in a Cubs
Ah,
shirt for those who are concerned. But you know,
so
we're
you haven't been brainwashed yet.
I have not as much as people have tried, but here we are.
Yes, but the attempts were with Atlanta sports, and those are not particularly persuasive. If
You got
if
me
the
in an Atlanta United jersey, so that's something, I guess. But other than that, no, sir.
some people don't count soccer anyway. We do on this podcast. We do count soccer. At least one half of the podcast does.
There you go. There you go. Own it.
Uh,
Own it. You're half the podcast. A full half. Let's go.
would you say it's a shutdown full half? No, that was a
I
bad
feel
bad
like
pun.
Big Network did that. That was that. We
Bad
are
pun.
equal partners. You know,
We
we cut
we
out the
we
other two
are
guys.
we are moving past the really ridiculous pun. And I don't know. We have a actually a good bit to talk about tonight as we record this on Sunday night. A lot of coaching news around this CFB verse. A lot of Georgia Tech news. Women's basketball played a couple games this week. Men's basketball was up and at 'em, and they're back in action later this coming week. And then we also had a football game and then some assorted news items there. So, if I can find my old clock app over here, let's put our usual, or now usual, 35 minutes on the clock and get rolling. You ready to go?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, three, two, one, let's get started. Women's basketball at Georgia Tech is now 4-1. 2-0 in the ACC. They took it to Notre Dame today in that game that was at 2 p.m. And then I don't remember a lot of the BC game, but they look pretty good in both of those early conference matchups.
I would agree. I'm going to be honest. I didn't watch the Boston College game. It was square in the middle of some finals week fun for me. But I did
Boo,
watch.
fake fan.
Yeah, well, such is life. But I did watch the Notre Dame game, and a big thing I think we've talked about for Tech a couple times this season already, even, but in the past has been slow starts, and they sure didn't do that against Notre Dame. They were out of the gates on fire in the first and the second halves, and in the first they kind of let Notre Dame back in the game, but in the second it was pretty much all Georgia Tech, and they got their first win against the Fighting Irish. Well, ever. So that's always a fun thing to get.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going back through our messages here, and I think there was a bit of consternation during the middle part of that first half when Notre Dame came out of one of the timeouts and sort of locked down on defense. Um,
Yep.
Both Nerea Hermosa and Laura Kubai had a lot of trouble breaking out of the baseline trap that Notre Dame had set up with the I think it was a 3-2 zone, 2-3 zone. I'm probably using the wrong term. Um, but they were able to get really effective double teams in the post and just neutralize uh, Tech's bigs. But then you
I'm
saw Tech get hot from the perimeter and sort of keep that up and force Notre Dame to spread out as the game progressed.
Yeah, and on the defensive side too, they also got Hermosa and Kubai in some pretty big foul trouble to the point where they were playing with four fouls for most of the fourth quarter, if not all of it. But Tech was able to make those adjustments after a while. One of their big go-tos is that backdoor down the baseline, and then just the drive to the paint wasn't really there. But the threes kept them in the game. I believe they made 10 in each of the games, so I'm sure their average was 6 per game over 4 games. So now they're at 34 over 5. So bumping up your season average by a full 3-pointer in a single game is a testament to how much they got out of that. And then in the second, they saw a lot more success from driving into the basket and kind of getting that work in the paint. So all in all, I'd say a pretty, they used the phases of the game when they could, and in the past we haven't really seen them be able to rely on the three like they did today. Sarah Bates looked very good from the outside, Lodemai Lottinen, and then a couple of the freshmen, Ilya Love and Loyal McQueen, looking fairly good. And they aren't even the best two freshmen. We haven't seen Ayanna Boyd yet, and she's a top 25, top 30 recruit in the whole country, 5-star. So Georgia Tech's got some pieces, maybe not to win the conference, but definitely to make some noise.
Yeah, I mean, last season they finished, I want to say 7th, and we're looking at a tournament bid. We've been talking about how last season they were they were deprived of a tournament bid. That was a tournament team, and despite some early struggles this season, I notably that Athens game and then parts of that Tulane game, where they did look out of sorts and sort of, well, they lost to Athens and then they sort of let Tulane hang around a good bit. They seem to clean it up, especially in conference play. And obviously, this season is going to be a lot more conference play than out of conference. So if they can keep that performance up during the course of the season, I think it's going to be really nice and tidy.
Yeah, helps to already have 2 conference wins banked. And if you think about it like this, Georgia Tech hasn't lost a game in regulation yet, and the team they lost to is pretty good. They're playing a pretty strong schedule. Their RPI looks good. I believe their strength of schedule, correct me if I'm wrong, is 3rd in the country. I think
I am going to take your word for it because I don't have that in front of me.
But yeah, no, RPI very strong as well. So there's, you just got to execute, and you're gonna run into the Louisvilles and the NC States of the world. Louisville in before last season took 2 of our top 3 scorers during the hubbub after Collier got the axe.
Not Collier, Joseph.
Joseph. Wow, that's bad.
Big. That's.
Woo. I guess Joseph's was that far out of my mind, but sorry, GT Volleyball, we love you, and your coach is amazing. But no, in the hubbub after all the consternation, I guess, when Fortner was brought on, and nothing against Fortner here either.
It was just a weird situation. We talked about it then. It was just like the weirdest ending to a season that we had seen across, I think, in our sporting history, right?
Until the wheels fell off the bus, that was a tournament team too. And I'm going to speak from full honesty and full heart. I don't think I'll ever know exactly what happened there.
None of us will.
I don't think we need to. It's nothing against Fortner for losing the 2 Elizabeths to Louisville, but I'll put it like this: they're not even the most important players on that team. They have depth. They have some crazy talent up there in Louisville, and at the same time, you see NC State at number 4, having already knocked off number 1 South Carolina, the top of the conference. Notre Dame used to be up there. That's why we'd never beat them before. Except last year they weren't that good, so that was a little weird that we didn't take 1. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, no, the top of the conference is very, very good. But this middle ground that Tech has kind of staked itself to, still without Boyd due to the knee injury, still without Fletcher due to we don't really know, to be honest. But Tech can make some noise in the middle. We get Clemson, we get the Wake Forest of the world, the Miamis, Florida State's a solid team. Florida State's a pretty contemporary team. If you can get your wins there, this team has another path to a winning record in the conference, and I think that puts us in a good line for a tournament bid. We have 2 wins banked already. If they can keep piling those on, then not that I don't see any way we can't, because that's talking too big too soon. I'm going to knock on some wood. Hopefully you heard that. But yeah, no, I think there's no reason that this Georgia Tech team couldn't be a top 3 or top 4 team in the conference.
Speaking of another team that could be top 3 or top 4 in the conference, no, I can't say that with a straight face. Men's basketball beat Nebraska in the ACC Big Ten Challenge by a considerable margin that I don't have in front of me because I'm not a good podcaster.
I think it
Please
was 11.
explain. Please
Um,
explain.
well, I'm going to be full honest. I watched this with the game on mute. Um, so a lot of the things were perhaps more baffling to me, not having the benefit of sound and explanation and good closed captions. But such is life. So I really feel like I got a whole new level of frustration, but also appreciation for the game because when stuff worked real well. We had a string in the second half where Jose Alvarado did the thing we've come to love him for, where he put the team on the back. He got real cocky. He made like 3 threes and a distance 2 from, the elbow and looked
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
darn
yeah. It was that sequence sort of like in the middle part of that second half, right?
yeah.
Where
That's
like you said, he puts the team on his back, but I think the thing with him is I have like a distinct feeling of him trying that in a game earlier this season, and he
yeah.
was just ice cold.
Yep.
So it's one of those things that works really well for him when he's shooting well on the night, and especially versus Nebraska, who is really content to sort of shoot themselves in the foot for a lot of the night. But when it doesn't work for him, or when he's not shooting well in the night, that strategy just kind of falls apart.
Yeah, and I think DeVoe kind of had. I think DeVoe and Alvarado kind of got chippy about it at the end of one of the losses, either Mercer or Georgia State. Which Mercer, their RPI is very, very good right now. So hopefully that stays up there, makes that loss look a little better than we kind of envisioned. But no, they were kind of drawn at it because Mike DeVoe, he's trying to be not trying to be the hero. That comes off as bad, but that's kind of what they're trying to do. They're very, very talented, see themselves as leaders, and when it works, especially for Jose, I think the Louisville game was a great example of that last year. And I think NC State he had a little bit of that too at the home game,
Mm-hmm.
where he got good, he got hot, he was feeling it, and the 10 steals, the tongue wag, whatever you want to
The
put
haircut.
on Jose, even the step over years back, that was a fantastic Georgia Tech game. But allowing myself to ramble, it's good to see more of the team waking up, whether that's Jose, whether that's somebody else. I think Kyle Sturdivant, at least based on what I could see looking up and, with it on mute, obviously not hearing all the details of what went into what. But Sturdivant looked pretty solid, and we cannot escape talking about Moses Wright. Moses Wright deserves every good thing because he is the epitome of the Passenger Project, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I think he'd be the crown jewel of it so far, just in terms of development, because he has just improved his game so much, and you've seen in the last 2 games where he has taken over at times, and he's been the team's leading scorer. He was the leading scorer in the Kentucky game. He had 21 points. We like we talked about last week. Like, he's put together some really impressive performances, and if he can be as consistent, he can continue those performances, and Alvarado and DeVoe can start getting hot. I think things are looking up. But I think my general opinion on this team, and I have it written in our shot sheet here, I don't get this team. It hurts my brain. It
Yeah,
hurts my brain a lot.
yeah, I would agree. The it's going to take some time. That you can't really shake Georgia State or Mercer all that fast. Nebraska, let's be real, not that good of a team. Not nearly the top of the Big Ten. We could have run into anyone from Indiana to Iowa to Illinois to Ohio State to Rutgers, even. All of them probably would have made it more of a game than Nebraska. And Nebraska did make it a game. Also, before we move on, I do want to mention Josh Pastner's giant COVID pinata,
Oh,
which
that got on SVP later that night. It's weird to see Georgia Tech for something good on Sports Center. I will say that.
you're really in the self depreciation mode tonight.
I watched the Falcons today. All right, it's a mood.
That is very fair. But yeah, no, we'll kind of see what happens. I'm not sold yet on this team.
Me
I
neither.
I think I came in with expectations, and then those were smushed. And now, they beat a ranked Kentucky team. Well, a 1-4 team now, but a
Whew.
Kentucky team, no less. A historically pretty frequently played rival who we've had trouble with. So I'll take it.
First
Um,
win by a John Calipari assistant.
yeah, big firsts for both basketball programs in terms of milestone wins. But yeah, no, we'll see with Florida State. We cannot lose to FAMU or Delaware State. Period. We cannot.
I have no comment. We should move on before I say something dumb. You watch any other ACC football this weekend?
I watched a couple minutes of Miami and North Carolina, laughed my head off, and then I got to go on with my day.
Yeah, I caught a little bit of that. I caught a little bit of I think one other game, but it was not ACC related. So we're gonna skip the recap for this week because I don't think we're gonna have anything interesting to say. So let's jump right into the Pitt game. This was a 20-34 Georgia Tech loss. Where do you want to start with this? We got just about 20 minutes left on the clock.
I am saving my rant for the end about officiating. Um, I have some very very choice things to say about that. I guess we can start with offense. Do it like we usually do.
All right, let's go through the shot sheet. So, I think this was an let's talk about the offense. This was a one where it was just weird. It was definitely a down day for the offense, especially on the ground, because Georgia Tech tried to run the ball on a top 10 rush defense, and it went just about as well as you'd imagine. I have the advanced box score pulled up here, and Tech was stuffed on 29% of its run plays.
Mm-hmm.
Um, not great. Not great at all. Overall success rate for the day was 31%. That's saying, Tech stayed on schedule, air quotes here because podcasting is visual medium, 31% of the time, which is very significantly under the national average of 42%. Um, Sims had to scramble for his life a good bit in this game. We saw another game where not having Gibbs as a safety valve hurt. Uh, Really, the tight end or Georgia Tech's tight end should be the replacement there. And we saw it a couple times. We saw it on that Dylan Devaney touchdown in the attempted comeback late in the game. But for the vast majority of the game, that was just not there for them. You got any offensive thoughts here?
Um, I think you could tell how much Sims and Gibbs play off each other. The run game
Mm-hmm.
still looked good. Malachi had a one big whiff drop. That was pretty brutal. Got to get your hands on that. And I had a couple comments related to reffing and how that would have changed our
We'll
offense.
save it. We'll save it. We'll save it.
Yeah.
One good thing that I will note about the offense of this game, and I also put it on Twitter right after or during the comeback. Um, Sims has been incredibly mature since the restart, since the COVID break, in second halves of his games. You see him become a lot more composed, stays in the pocket a bit longer, steps up in the pocket, and makes some really, really good throws at really, really good times. I don't know if that's a symptom of his team being down by a significant margin in some cases, to where the pass rush relaxes a bit, or if it's his composure. But I choose to believe that it's his composure, and I, for one, am impressed.
Yeah. I will. I will second on that. I like the composure. He looked good in the second half. So
All right, let's switch over to the defense, shall we? Honestly, my shot sheet here is the exact same as last week. So when they had got pressure, things were good, but they did not get pressure all that often. Um, Surprisingly, the havoc rate was actually pretty good. They got 23%. They had havoc plays on 23% of the defensive snaps, but notably only 9% of Tech's havoc plays, or 9% of defensive snaps, which were havoc plays, were from the secondary. That doesn't make any sense. Take my word for it. I sort of point at the secondary specifically because this was not a good secondary game. And I think it was best encapsulated by a pick that was fumbled back to Pittsburgh.
That was the dumbest play I've seen all season. Like, just like nonsensical. Not like you're dumb. Well, it was kind of dumb, but I don't like to insult players. But like, it was just like a very Georgia Tech experience, you know?
And someone is going to come back in the comments and note that the person that picked that pass off was Quez Jackson, who I believe is a linebacker, but he was in coverage, so we're going to count it as a secondary thing because if you look at the sum total of the game from a secondary perspective, Pickett wasn't super great, but he was able to hit a lot of deep throws and really take advantage of a couple coverage busts, just like Chase Bryce did, and just like Bailey Hockman did in the past couple of weeks. And
Yep.
it's one of those recurring themes that we've talked about all season. It's the defense has had some significant regression, especially in a unit that we expected to be one of the best on the team in the secondary. And it's disheartening to see, to put it mildly.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, so I think this is around the spot because special teams was okay. I mean, Presley Harvin was back and was electric, so that's sort of all we have to say there. I think this is the spot where we talk about the zebras, if you will. Mr. Grant.
Hold on. First, one thing, Gavin Stewart, good job. You get a gold star. You didn't miss anything. We hated on that enough at the beginning of the year. I'm gonna call
We
out
have
something
to give
good.
credit where credit is due. True. I will give I will give my props to Gavin Stewart, and I think Austin Kent has also done a pretty good job on kickoffs and putting those in the touchback zone. His coverage team leaves a bit to be desired, but he's got the leg for it. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Zebras.
I am shocked and appalled, but sadly not surprised at how bad the reffing was. There's never been a game where I feel like it's badly officiated, but Georgia Tech isn't getting the shaft. And not that I want there to be. That's not how football works. That's not how you get good wins. That's not satisfying. I mean, I'd take it at this point, but the DPIs on 50-50 balls where our players turn their head and they, relatively by the book, no worse than the other, being called aggressively for one team and not the other, especially on that's not a false start. That is a significant amount of yardage. It's the first down. It's all of that. It's
Thankfully, it's not a spot foul. That
yeah,
would be worse. But
yeah,
it's just 15 yards. But your point is still valid.
yes. And there was the late hit on like the second play of the game, or the roughing passer on the second play of the game, and then the late hit where he like grazed his shoulder barely or something.
As Pickett was still in bounds. By the
Yeah,
way, that
yeah.
just for our listeners, the late hit that Jake is describing is towards the end of the fourth quarter, middle of the fourth quarter, I believe. Wanye Thomas guides Kenny Pickett out of bounds as Pickett has to scramble out of the pocket. And that was flagged for a late hit on Wanye, and it was The crowd did not take to that particularly lightly.
No, for there only being 11,000 people there, it
Oh,
was
you could hear it.
it was loud.
You could hear real good.
I don't blame them. I was part of the loud, even though not really supposed to do that when you're in a rec club. But I was it was my
Oh,
game.
rules.
Can't stop me. Sorry. What was I gonna say? If and and there was a couple times where, hey, maybe we got a call. I thought there'd be offsetting penalties along the Pitt sideline when they called the personal foul. Luckily, there wasn't, and that's one, I guess, tick mark back in our column. But in general, the biggest momentum, the ones that extended drives, burned time off the clock, changed how the game played at a fundamental level. Uh, none of that. None of that went Tech's way. And it was best exemplified in the end zone. Blatant pass interference right in front of the student section.
Oh,
And
it was the exact same thing that they've been calling all night
yeah,
against Tech, and
and
it was just it was not fun.
I said this last week. I hate blaming things on the refs, complaining about the refs, and they're making me do it for the second week in a row, making me look like a hypocrite.
Yeah, no, it's frustrating, right? I think this is something that we talked about before we started recording regarding the Florida LSU game where the defensive lineman threw a shoe, which is its own bundle of stupid, by the way. And we're not going to get into that, but in Florida's case, it was you are not supposed to be in a situation where a player doing something dumb like that costs you the game. Especially in their case, it was a 23 point. They were a 23-point favorite. You can make somewhat of a reverse argument in Georgia Tech's case where these really poorly called penalties were might have jobbed Tech out of points. If not, like I'm not going to go so far as to say win, but
Speaking of, they literally did that. They literally did that. The offensive
this
on
is a
the
good point.
conversion. Oh my goodness, how have we not even mentioned that?
Yeah. Let me color in the lines here. So this was on Tech's first touchdown, I believe. I have the box
Nah,
score.
it
Let me pull that
was
up. This was
second.
on Tech's second touchdown, where they executed effectively the Philly special. PJ Harris hit Sims for the 2-point conversion. But for the first time in American football history, a ref has called OPI on a pick play. It's frustrating. I mean, I think even the broadcast was a little confused as to why it was called OPI. It did not look like OPI to me. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but even if I try to put my bias aside, no grabbing. It was just sort of Jalen Camp was standing there, like literally setting a pick and not grabbing grabbing the defender. And it was still called, and that job Tech got 2 points because they certainly did not convert when it was pushed back 15 yards.
And they got close. They definitely made it a decent way down the field, probably
Oh
close.
yeah, they were like 2 or 3 yards short on the second attempt. Don't get me wrong, but it would have been nice to have those 2 points. I don't know.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have them. The plays that just extended that early fourth quarter drive and killed off 4 more minutes of clock. That's when I knew things were going to look tough. But I've never had more respect for Jeff Collins than him getting candid on the sideline. I respect that. I've had my thoughts on him. I don't always agree with everything he says or does. There's a lot that I do like. There's a lot that he says and has done that I think is very good for the program. But that is probably the most, I guess, relatable, or I don't know if relatable is the right way to say that,
Candid
but
is, I think, the right word, and it's how someone in the writers' room put it too, where it's like for all of the branding and effort and positivity and aggressiveness, the shtick, right, that we all talk about. For all
Yep.
that shtick, this was sort of a moment where he broke through the shtick, and he
Yep.
was legitimately angry, and you could see it, and this sort of flows into the whole controversy about the handshake,
Yeah.
which is a dumb controversy because if you if you tell me that you would have looked Pat Narduzzi in the eye and shaken his hand calmly and said good game after getting jobbed by the referees for 3 hours, including maybe 5 minutes prior on a DPI no call in the end zone that should have been a touchdown. Um, you would have you might be interviewing for the Vatican soon. It's just the the amount of bad faith arguments and just like holier than thou stuff I've seen on social media about that is just ridiculous. I can guarantee that if you are just as furious, you would have not done this like weird class thing and shaken his hand fairly.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
I I don't think anybody can blame Jeff for. Here's the possibilities. One, he's explicitly mad at Pat Narduzzi and trying to blow him off. You don't do that on national television. You settle it like a man, and you don't half-ass that. Sorry, swear, whatever.
It's fine. Well, this is a family podcast. It's a PG-13 podcast.
Fair enough. Um, the if you're legitimately mad at him, you're not gonna you're gonna commit to the bit. I guess like that wasn't a. It didn't strike me as a Narduzzi. I'm blowing you specifically off because like yes, Pat Narduzzi is a crotchety goon, and his players were drawing at our stands almost the whole game, and it was pretty obvious. But Jeff doesn't do that. Jeff isn't talking to Pat during the game. Nothing his player, like maybe every once in a while a player interacts with our sideline or says something on the field. That's not something that Jeff is going to do in a stadium with 11,000 plus people and the whole world on a Thursday night. Well, except for those who don't get St. Clair. So 10% of the world
I have
watching.
thoughts on that, but we'll get there.
It's on Marquee Network. Anyways, I was in the middle of a train of thought. The other thought, get his players away from the Pitt players, watching his guys. What does Jeff preach? Family, watching out for each other. That is a perfectly logical explanation for me, but also, I don't think it deserves an explanation. Straight up.
No is a complete sentence.
And
No,
if,
it's just
yeah,
I think we're saying the same thing. It's just super frustrating that this has been made out and overanalyzed in the media for something it's not. And I do have to, just to be even keeled. There were issues earlier in the game where Tech was handed unsportsmanlike conduct penalties for jawing with Pitt players. Those obviously weren't reciprocated. The refs did not issue, taunting penalties to Pitt players. But it obviously like the way that this game was officiated, it seemed very likely that there was going to be some sort of incident towards the end of the game. It
yep,
it very much so seemed like with 10 to 7 minutes left in that fourth quarter, like there was going to be an all-out fight right after that late hit and
yep,
the fake late hit. And look, I don't care. I think it's a dumb controversy. I'm only commenting on it because I think it's absolutely stupid how overanalyzed this has become by ESPN to a certain extent, and by just everyone wanting to say like, oh, if an ex coach did this, you would be completely irate. No, I wouldn't. I've seen Jim Harbaugh do that at versus Ohio State, and I completely understand.
Well, the most celebrated GIF in our fan base in the last 5 years is Paul Johnson doing his tongue wag after FSU. You can't tell me that's
They
sportsmanlike.
didn't shake hands. There's no way
No,
they shook hands after that game.
no, they didn't. And Akshay, there's one silver lining to come out of this, I think, in particular. You want to know what it is?
Sure.
I think it is not a stretch to say that there is now at least some inkling of rivalry in this series. And that's something that Georgia Tech needs for its long-term, I guess, lack of a better term, interest in the ACC Coastal. Because as much as we want there to be pods, that doesn't look like it's happening.
They ain't coming until Notre Dame does.
Exactly. Plus a 16th team. Hey, call Cincinnati. They look pretty good. And they already got a rivalry trophy with Louisville. Anyways, also screw UCF. Go away. Wow, that was a lot in one sentence. Anyways,
Finish up. Wrap it up.
Georgia Tech, Pittsburgh. We play them every year. We see them in basketball and baseball and women's basketball, and they're really good in volleyball. They're pretty smart. They got a ridiculous tower. Ours is much cooler. It's made with red bricks. Theirs is called a cathedral. That's weird. But no, this is my pitch for this and whatever ancient Heisman-y weirdness, I mean, we could honestly, we could probably invent a trophy for this game that would make
jacket game
and invent just as reasonable of a story as the Grey Devils. This is a project for not during this podcast. If any readers have ideas, DM us, tweet us, Jake Grant, Akshay Ishwar on FT, Fabricate the Retro shirts on Twitter.
That's
Grant.
Lots of stuff that we're saving until next week. We're about to go into stoppage time here. I know how much you love the soccer metaphors, but just a quick note since after the Pitt game, it came down from Georgia Tech that they would not be playing the Miami game this coming weekend because, well, Tech would just not have the players. Sims did get injured at the end of the Pitt game and had to come out. Jordan Yates played most of the last series. And, I mean, Tech was already depleted at most positions, honestly.
James is already a Georgia Southern Eagle, so you can't call him up either.
Yeah, and basically the story goes they would have only had one available quarterback, and losses across the rest of the team. I mean, the defense was already depleted. The defense had a lot of injuries in this game too.
Actually, you know what that would have meant though. At quarterback, it's Tobias time. I missed those days.
Do you?
Virginia Tech, beautiful. A night.
Okay, I'll give you that one.
What? He graduated. You got to give him at least that airtime, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, no. In summary, James Graham to Georgia Southern. No quarterbacks left. Defense full of injuries. Pitt is a rival now. You can at me on any of those, and we can talk more. But
handshakes are dumb. Handshakes are dumb. Let's add that there. Also, class in college athletics doesn't exist. Sorry, it's a myth. It's modern blood sport. I'm not kidding. All right, let's wrap up here. Like we said, no Miami game this week. I'm not super bothered, honestly. Even if it cancellation, no cancellation, not super bothered.
You got 4 nights of college basketball instead. That's pretty darn good for a pandemic.
And a lot of soccer. A lot of soccer.
I mean, I was going straight up for Georgia Tech college basketball, but I'm pretty sure there's sports every night of the week too. So you got that.
Yeah. I mean, we have bowl season coming up too. So, I mean, which pandemic sports seasons starting to get a little wild, especially now that we have no restrictions on who is eligible for the postseason. So, of course, ESPN has projected Tech to the Gasparilla Bowl versus either Liberty or South Carolina.
So what I'm hearing is I should go and pack up my car to drive to Tampa because that's definitely safe.
No, not again. No.
Oh gosh, that's in Raymond James, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh Lord.
No, we're not. No, we're not even entertaining this.
We're never going back there. Can we never go back there?
Maybe. Look, I would not be super high on Tech getting bowl bid. However, there is always a chance. Tech did say that they would consider it if invited. And the ACC is currently running out of traditionally bowl eligible teams. So we will sort of evaluate that as it comes. Just some quick notes on how the season ended up. Tech finished. What is this number that I have in front of me? They finished 3-7. Tech before the season, we projected Tech to have just about four expected wins. They had 3 actual wins, along with 1 game canceled. And really, the way that it broke down, if you look at second order wins, so that's wins based on post game win probability, they had about 4.5. So they they underperformed their projections here. If you look at the raw data, they finished 11th in the ACC. And just to go over the final SP Plus numbers, 69th overall, 68th overall offense, 62nd ranked defense, and 115th special teams. So, Jake, in a couple sentences, what were your thoughts on this season? Because we'll definitely talk about it at length next week, but I just want to get a quick overview.
Clemson was a nadir. That was horrific and ugly and should never happen again.
Yep.
Jeff Sims, Jahmyr Gibbs, they're gonna be good parts of this offense for a long time, and the running back room looks really great. Not sure how our most experienced defensive unit backslid quite as bad as they did, but I'd like to see some improvement there. In general, I think these 3 wins are, I don't want to say more valid than last year's because that sounds bad, but like I was confident in the Duke win. We played well. FSU, they fought back. Yes, FSU is terrible. Don't at me on that, but
we didn't know that they were this bad
I don't
at
know.
the time.
True, and we made kicks in that game. Wow.
No, we missed
starting
a
a true freshman.
We missed a couple, and now
yeah, we did. We should have been in the Syracuse game. We were in NC State till the end. We were in Pittsburgh to the end. We even gave Notre Dame a couple quarters of good football. You know,
Boston College, we were in that one early too. I mean, it was
a couple bad turnovers. A couple suspect calls in that one too. But
I think one of the things I have on the shot sheet is what constitutes progress. And I mean, by and large, if you let's take it purely by the numbers. Tech last season was around 90th. They finished 90th in SP Plus. They're 69th. They went from bad to solidly mediocre. And as painful as it was at points this season, that's progress.
Yeah. I think the Clemson game next year will be a good measuring stick. Like if we turn in another ethereally bad dumpster fire, then yeah, there might be some talking that needs to happen. But listen, Jeff Sims, Jahmyr Gibbs, even Jordan Williams, kickers, they didn't get a shred of the offseason. They're used to, and we're relying on freshmen. That's a big deal. These players are playing, and granted, all players on both teams that and in any given week are dealing with the COVID stuff. But at Georgia Tech, that, props to them for pulling it out. There's a lot of stress and commitment and all sorts of regulations in the best of times when you're a student athlete, and to add the somewhat demoralizing effect of being a Georgia Tech student without being able to go to class and be with people. And I mean, that was my life this semester. I can't imagine it was easier for somebody having to be up early every morning and still practice, but then going back to your dorm and doing nothing or relatively nothing, to
a certain extent, it's worse for them, right? Because they're eating meals alone. They are practicing. I mean, they're practicing together, but they have to do even more to keep from spreading the virus.
I can still play tennis with a couple friends and not have anybody turn a blind eye. But if somebody like that, who's a varsity athlete, wants to go play some hoops. I mean, they can't go to the CRC to do that. If they want to, go out to the sack fields and play some soccer, whatever you want to do in your free time.
Nope.
Even the socially distanced or relatively socially distanced stuff like tennis or like I said, soccer or something like that. It's major props to them, especially, it's not easy to be a tech student. It's not easy to be a tech student and an athlete. It's not easy to be a tech student and under all of this, so much pressure that, like, to an extent, you and I can relate. We're Georgia Tech guys. I'm a Georgia Tech student in a pandemic, but like I was going to swim practice once a week, twice a week after the semester got hard. That they don't have that choice. And I think with how young our team was, with how much expectation, how much regulation, not that 3 wins was the best they could do, because, like I said, Syracuse, Boston College, even UCF, NC State, and Pitt were all fiery games. We're all games that we were at least relatively in, and that felt like an improvement, even if it didn't really shake out to more wins in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. We are approaching the final whistle. Mr. Grant, I hear you have something to close us out with.
Yeah, kind of going off my little speech I just gave. This now more than ever is, it's graduation season. It's a time to celebrate accomplishments. It's time to shout out the 35 Georgia Tech student athletes who got out, including one Buzz, I believe. I saw that on social. So congrats to them. Again, just trying to rapid fire some of the memories of, players that have brought. We had the spring grads walk. I won't talk much about them, but from the fall grads, it was Tobias Oliver. I think we'll all remember the 2018 Louisville and Virginia Tech games for a very long time. Those were, I said this in writing, but the Virginia Tech 2018 game, I think, was the last true triple option Paul Johnson glory
Special.
game. That was run him into the ground. That was electric. I think it was like a 2.5 hour game. But
went in and just melted Fuente's time in Virginia to a nice little puddle.
Yeah.
Although he is technically still on staff.
Got BVG fired, right? That was fun.
BVG got hired like immediately after that, but that's not working out so well for him. Continue.
Yeah. Other highlights from women's tennis, we had Nadia Gizdova graduate. That Georgia Tech 2018 women's tennis team is the best team we've had on campus in any sport, except maybe whatever golf could have done last year. Since I've been a student, probably since you've been a student too.
Yes, since I've been a student. Let me tell you,
they made a great run. Knocked off some great teams, both at home and on the road. Didn't get the conference title, but the ACC is really good at tennis, so it kind of happens. Grace Rigsby from volleyball. I think you and I have talked and shilled for volleyball hard enough that our listeners probably know about that. But run to the NIVC, hang the banner. It's time. That was an amazing run, and she was a big part of the rotation the last couple of years. Let's see, what else do we got? Nobody from baseball graduated, which was a little weird. Nobody from basketball. Women's basketball, another great team with a lot of potential the last couple of years. I'm trying to make sure I get everyone here. Oh, yes, swimming. I'm saving this one for last I'm saving swimming for last. I'm doing Tyler Strafacci next. I think you and I both know just how important he and his cohorts have been to this golf program. They've won, I believe, 3 straight ACC titles. They were, if not the odds-on favorite to win it all last year, pretty darn close with the reigning U.S. amateur champ Andy Ogletree, who's now a very successful pro, and the guy who would go on to be this year's U.S. amateur champ, Tyler. Great job. You brought a lot of I don't know. That was the first time seeing him win was the first time we had seen Georgia Tech in action since Georgia Tech baseball uh, recorded the final out in Auburn. For that win back in March, and just that
Real weird.
it was.
Real weird that I was watching golf.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I play golf now. This is a weird world we live in now. But
Keep it moving. Keep it moving.
um, yes, I will wrap it up. But no, Tyler, bringing Georgia Tech sports back. I'm sorry that you and Andy never got the chance to make a run at the end of the year, but did some great things on the flats. And I hope you turn pro because I will be watching you the whole way. Last story: swimming and diving. Georgia Tech men's swimming is a top 25 program. They are perhaps poised to be even better this year and hopefully next year, but losing some big names off of that. But the one I want to shout out actually comes from women's swimming, and we don't shout them out enough. But this one is because I think a couple of their athletes really represent what it means to be the what Todd Stansbury talks about in being like the leaders of tomorrow. We at Georgia Tech create the leaders who will shape the world, and these are girls and the guys who are engineers, who are scientists, who are CS majors, and in particular Tamir Gonin Cohen, who also just wrote a novel on top of being a mechanical engineering bachelor's and master's student,
And an athlete.
and an athlete coming back from horrible leg injury, trying to compete again for Tech. These are the stories that make Georgia Tech special, and I think a lot of it that gets lost in the gosh, football went 3-9. Gosh, Ron Bell, like those aren't
Don't can of
those aren't
worms.
what make Georgia Tech special, right? Like you get lost in recruiting and stars and numbers and even the finances. Shout out edge building
Oh
finance,
boy.
love that. Um, but still, these people are our peers and role models, and they're going to do great things. And not everybody is even a Tobias Oliver. Not everybody's going to be Jeff Sims, but these not even nameless, faceless, but the ones who I don't know. I don't want to be put it down, but the ones who don't get the spotlight, they do great things too, and they really represent what it makes me proud to cover as a Georgia Tech writer, and proud to be as a Georgia Tech student and somebody who looks up to these people as my peers. So it's a hard road, and they got out, you and I got out, and maybe we'll both do it again someday. But they do great things. So.
Last thing I want to say is I think one of the parts of college athletics that we forget is that, like you said, like these are our peers. These are students. These are students too. These are people too. And I think that sort of gets lost in the mix. And you see it a lot on social media. Reminder: never go on social media, where we sort of just think of them as automatons. Words that just sort of wear the crest and prance around, but that they're own people. They have their own accomplishments, and we should celebrate them for that. And congrats to everyone that got out. Mr. Grant, I hear you have some finals bookkeeping to take care of with the rest of your night.
Yeah, I'm wrapping some stuff up. Hopefully things shook out well for dear old Jake. But
And for you to get out a second time is the segue that I wanted to make, but wasn't intelligent enough to.
I mean, I'm not about to toot my own horn here. These people are way more impressive than me. But
I need a good segue to end on here. Just give me this.
well, hopefully we have some good news for you guys in the coming weeks with some stuff we're working on. It's a wonderful time of year, and from the Rumble seat is proud that you make at least a little part of your day with us. So thanks for sticking around, and yeah, it's the holiday season, I guess. I don't know. Go enjoy your breaks, y'all.
Listeners, thank you again for listening, and we will talk to you again very soon. Stay safe. Have fun.